The massive alien ship appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's deep space sensors showed nothing unusual. The next, a vessel larger than anything humans had ever built, hung silently at the edge of the solar system. Commander Eric Mason stared at the main screen in the United Nations Space Command Center. His coffee grew cold in his hand. Around him, technicians and officers worked frantically to understand what they were seeing. "Any response to our hails?" he asked. Lieutenant Susan Parker shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir. The ship is just sitting there." Eric ran a hand through his short brown hair. After years of heading Earth's First Contact Division, the moment had finally arrived. Actual aliens. His training felt suddenly inadequate. "Keep broadcasting on all frequencies. Let them know we're open to peaceful communication." As if in response to his words, every screen in the command center flickered. Every communication device on Earth activated simultaneously. The alien message began to play. "People of Earth," said a deep, melodious voice speaking perfect English. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council, a union of 47 spacefaring species. We come in peace to offer you membership in our ancient and prosperous alliance." The message continued, explaining how Council membership would bring technological advancement, protection, and entry into a vast interstellar community. Similar messages played worldwide in every human language. Within hours, President Laura Bennett called an emergency meeting at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva. Eric found himself seated next to Admiral Olivia Wright, whose usual stern expression seemed even more intense today. "What do we know about them?" the president asked. Eric cleared his throat. "The ship is approximately 15 kilometers long. Its technology is far beyond ours. They've sent us a data package containing basic information about the Council and preliminary membership terms." "And what do these terms say?" President Bennett leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Dr. Joe Matthews, Earth's leading xenolinguistics expert, looked up from his tablet. "The initial reading seemed promising, but there are concerning elements buried in the legal language." He projected the document onto the main screen, highlighting specific sections. Earth would be classified as a Class C species with limited voting rights. We would need to provide 40% of our rare Earth elements and minerals as a membership contribution. And we would accept Council military forces on our planet for protection and guidance. Admiral Wright snorted. "Protection and guidance. That's a fancy way of saying occupation." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "There's more," Dr. Matthews continued. "The fine print indicates we would need to limit our independent technological development and adhere to strict population controls." President Bennett's expression hardened. "They're not offering membership, they're offering colonization with a pretty name." A young analyst named Greg Fisher spoke up from the back of the room. "We've been analyzing their communications. The language they use suggests they're used to species simply accepting these terms without question." Eric nodded. "The tone implies this is routine for them. They may have done this hundreds or thousands of times before." President Bennett stood up and walked to the window. Beyond it, Geneva's peaceful lake reflected the afternoon sun. "Get me a direct line to whoever's in charge of that ship. I want to speak to them personally." 2 hours later, the president addressed the alien vessel from the United Nations chamber. Eric stood behind her with Admiral Wright and a small team of advisors. "To the representatives of the Galactic Council," President Bennett began, her voice firm and clear. "We, the people of Earth, have carefully reviewed your offer of membership. While we appreciate your peaceful approach and the potential benefits of joining an interstellar community, we find several aspects of your proposed terms unacceptable." She detailed Earth's objections: the unequal status, the resource demands, the military presence, and the restrictions on Earth's development. "Therefore, we respectfully decline your current offer and propose instead to open equal diplomatic relations, with the potential for a more balanced membership agreement in the future." The response came almost immediately. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the chamber, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and elongated features. It wore ornate robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. "I am Ambassador Zal Vorn of the Galactic Council, the being said, its voice containing notes humans couldn't quite process. There appears to be a misunderstanding. The terms offered are standard for all new species. No exceptions have ever been made in 12,000 years of Council history. President Bennett didn't flinch. Then perhaps it's time for change. Earth will not accept second-class status or surrender its sovereignty. The alien's expression was difficult to read, but something like surprise seemed to flicker across its features. No species has ever rejected initial membership terms, Zalvorn said slowly. This is unprecedented. We are willing to negotiate, President Bennett replied. But as equals, the alien ambassador seemed at a loss for words. I will convey your response to the Grand Minister. This situation requires consultation. After the hologram disappeared, Admiral Wright let out a low whistle. I think we just surprised them. Eric nodded. The question is how they'll react now. The answer came 3 days later. A smaller vessel detached from the main ship and headed toward Earth. Ambassador Zalvorn requested permission to land and continue discussions in person. They're not used to being told no, Eric said during the security briefing. We should prepare for any possibility. When the alien craft landed at the special facility outside of Geneva, Earth's delegation waited with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Ambassador Zalvorn emerged with 6 other aliens of different species, each more strange than the last. President Bennett, the ambassador said with a formal gesture using all 4 hands. The Grand Minister has authorized me to discuss your unusual response. In 12,000 years, no species has ever declined our initial offer. President Bennett stepped forward. Then I suggest we make history together, Ambassador. Welcome to Earth. The delegation was escorted to the conference room. As they walked, Eric noticed the aliens examining everything with what seemed like surprise. He exchanged glances with Admiral Wright, who walked with her hand casually near her sidearm. Whatever happened next would change humanity's future forever. Eric only hoped they were ready for it. The conference room felt too small for the tension it contained. On one side sat Earth's delegation, led by President Bennett. On the other side, Ambassador Zalvorn and 6 alien representatives watched with expressions humans couldn't fully interpret. Commander Eric Mason studied each alien carefully. Besides the blue-skinned, 4-armed Zalvorn, there was a short, stocky being with rough orange skin, a tall, willowy creature that seemed to shimmer like water, and 4 others, equally strange to human eyes. Let me be clear, Zalvorn said, after preliminary introductions. Your position is unprecedented. All species begin at Class C status. This is not negotiable. Dr. Samantha Collins, Earth's top xenolinguistics expert, leaned forward. She had spent the last 3 days analyzing the aliens' language patterns. With respect, Ambassador, she said, your own historical documents that you shared mention 17 species that entered at Class B status. A ripple of movement passed through the alien delegation. The orange-skinned being hissed something in a language the translation devices couldn't catch. Those were special cases, Zalvorn said carefully. Ancient history. Special how? Admiral Wright asked bluntly. They possess certain advantages, Zalvorn replied. Military strength that made lower classification impractical. President Bennett folded her hands on the table. So the Council respects strength. The Council respects order and hierarchy, Zalvorn corrected. Your species is young. You have much to learn before you can fully participate in galactic society. Young diplomat Kyle Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Perhaps, Ambassador, you could share what Earth would need to demonstrate to qualify for better terms. Eric noticed how the other aliens turned to look at Kyle, something like surprise in their movements. Zalvorn seemed momentarily at a loss. This is not how things are done, the ambassador finally said. The Council decides a species' readiness, not the other way around. Then perhaps we're not ready to join, President Bennett said. We will continue our own path of development. Zalvorn's upper arms made a dismissive gesture. Without Council protection, independent species rarely survive first contact with less diplomatic forces in the galaxy. Admiral Wright's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Merely a statement of historical fact, Zalvorn replied smoothly. The meeting continued for hours, going in circles. The council representatives seemed genuinely baffled by human resistance. They were not used to negotiating with new species. Dr. Collins noticed they had no protocols for this situation. While the talks continued without progress, General Frank Pearson quietly strengthened Earth's defenses. Military forces around the world went on alert. Scientists worked desperately to understand the alien technology from the data they had shared. After 3 days of fruitless talks, Zalvorn requested a private meeting with President Bennett. Only Eric and Admiral Wright were allowed to attend. With her, President Bennett, Zalvorn said, his tone more serious than before. I have communicated your position to the Grand Minister. He is disturbed by your continued resistance. We are simply protecting our interests, Bennett replied calmly. The Council has authorized me to offer slightly improved terms, Zalvorn continued. Class C+ status. Resource contribution reduced to 35%. Military presence. Limited to orbital stations only. President Bennett shook her head. Still not acceptable. Zalvorn's skin darkened slightly. You do not understand your position. The Council does not need your agreement. We have incorporated thousands of worlds over our history. Some eagerly, some reluctantly. All eventually accept the inevitable. Admiral Wright leaned forward. Are you threatening Earth, Ambassador? I am informing you of reality, Zalvorn replied. The Council will not leave this system without Earth's incorporation, one way or another. Eric watched as President Bennett stood, up slowly. Her voice was quiet but firm when she spoke. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Earth will not surrender its freedom, not now, not ever. Zalvorn stared at her for a long moment. I will convey your final decision to the Grand Minister. After the aliens left, Eric turned to President Bennett. They're not used to being refused. What do you think they'll do? She asked. Admiral Wright's face was grim. Probably try to scare us into compliance, show of force most likely. Then we need to be ready, the President said. As predicted, Zalvorn's shuttle returned to the main ship. 6 hours later, 3 smaller vessels detached from the mothership and moved toward Earth. They're taking up positions around our planet, General Pearson reported from the Military Command Center. Triangular formation. No weapons active yet, but they're clearly positioning for some kind of action. President Bennett addressed the world in a calm, measured broadcast. She explained the situation and the Council's demands. Earth will stand, free or not at all, she concluded. We face this challenge united. Around the world, people watched the alien ships with fear and determination. Years of science fiction had prepared humanity psychologically for this moment in ways the aliens couldn't understand. In the Council flagship, Junior Aide Zertak watched the human broadcasts with growing concern. Unlike his superiors, he had studied human history thoroughly. Sir, he said hesitantly to his commander, the humans have a history unusually dominated by warfare. They've developed military strategy as an art form. They are primitive, his superior dismissed. Their weapons cannot harm our ships. But they learn quickly, Zertak insisted. And they seem to have a psychological resistance to submission that is unusual. All species submit eventually, came the cold reply. On Earth, Dr. Henry Wells worked frantically in his underground lab. For days he had been analyzing the alien transmissions, finding patterns in their shield frequencies. There's a fluctuation. Every 12.7 seconds, he told Eric and Admiral Wright. A tiny window, but it's there. Can we exploit it? Admiral Wright asked. Dr. Wells nodded. I think so, but we'll only get one chance before they adapt. Eric looked at the tactical display showing the alien ships now in position around Earth. How much time do we need? He asked. 24 hours, Dr. Wells replied. Maybe less if we push it. Admiral Wright nodded grimly. I'll tell the President. We need to keep the aliens talking for one more day. As night fell over Geneva, the alien ships began powering up their systems. Whatever was coming would begin soon. Morning came with an uneasy quiet. The 3 alien ships hung in Earth's orbit, silent but threatening. In the underground command center, President Bennett met with her crisis team. "They're waiting for something," Admiral Wright said, pointing to the tactical display. "Their weapon systems are powered up but not targeting yet." Secretary Alan Pierce, the aging defense strategist who had planned for alien contact scenarios for decades, cleared his throat. "They want us to make the first move. Or they're waiting for instructions from their leadership." Dr. Henry Wells rushed into the room, his lab coat wrinkled from a sleepless night. "We've done it," he announced. "We've figured out how to penetrate their shields." He placed a small device on the conference table. "The Council ships use a harmonic frequency shield that pulses in a regular pattern. Every 12.7 seconds there's a millisecond when the shields recalibrate. It's barely detectable, but it's there." "Can we exploit this weakness?" Eric asked. Dr. Wells nodded. "We've modified 12 orbital defense satellites to fire precisely when that window opens, but we need exact timing and coordination." President Bennett looked at the faces around the table. "How confident are you in this plan?" "It's the best chance we have," Dr. Wells replied, "but we should be prepared for it to fail." General Pearson stepped forward. "I recommend we activate our stealth observation craft. If this works, we'll need immediate intelligence on their response." President Bennett nodded. "Do it." Captain Lisa Grant received her orders in the cockpit of Earth's first true stealth spacecraft, hidden in a lunar base on the far side of the moon. Her mission was simple but dangerous. Observe the alien vessels up close without being detected. "Launching in 3 minutes," she told her small crew of 4. "Remember, our hull is coated with materials that should absorb their scanning waves, but we've never tested this against actual alien technology." Meanwhile, in the Council flagship, Ambassador Zalvorn argued with his superiors. "This show of force is unnecessary," he insisted. "The humans are reasonable beings. They simply need time to understand their place." Council Military Commander Talorax, a tall being with gray stone-like skin, shook his massive head. "They have refused direct Council orders. The protocol is clear. We must demonstrate the consequences of defiance." "They might surprise you," Zalvorn warned. "I've studied them closer than you. These humans are unpredictable." Talorax made a dismissive gesture. "They are primitive. Their most advanced weapons could not scratch our hull plating." On the other side of the command room, Intelligence Officer Kuzneth, a small being with large compound eyes, monitored the data streams from Earth. Something troubled her. "Commander," she called out, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's orbital platforms." Talorax barely glanced her way. "Probably their primitive scanning attempts. Ignore it." Kuzneth continued her analysis anyway. As she dug deeper into human history files, her concern grew. "Commander, their historical records indicate these humans have fought more wars among themselves than any species we've encountered. They've developed warfare as an art form. All the more reason they need Council guidance," Talorax replied. On Earth, the final preparations were in place. 12 defense satellites had been repositioned and reprogrammed. Dr. Wells monitored the timing calibrations from his lab. "Synchronization complete," he reported. "Ready on your command." President Bennett looked around the room one last time. "This is a defensive measure only," she reminded everyone. "We're not starting a war. We're showing them we can defend ourselves." Admiral Wright nodded. "The moment their shields go down, we'll broadcast our message." "Proceed," President Bennett ordered. Captain Grant's stealth ship slipped silently into position, its special hull absorbing the alien scanning waves. From their hidden vantage point, they could observe all 3 alien vessels. "In position," she reported quietly. "No signs of detection." At precisely 0800 hours, all 12 defense satellites fired simultaneously. Their enhanced energy beams struck the 3 alien ships exactly as the shield windows opened. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien vessels shuddered as their shield generators overloaded. Emergency lights activated across their hulls. Their weapon systems, which had been powering up, went suddenly dark. "Direct hits on all targets," General Pearson reported, his voice steady despite his surprise. "Their shields are down, weapon systems offline. From her observation position, Captain Grant confirmed the damage. They're in disarray, internal lights flickering. No signs of weapons activation. In the Council flagship, alarms blared. Commander Talorax stared in disbelief at the damage reports. Impossible, he growled. How could they penetrate our shields? Ambassador Zalvorn's expression was difficult to read. I warned you not to underestimate them. Intelligence Officer Kuzneth worked frantically at her station. Commander, I've completed my analysis of human history. They've developed more weapons technology in their short civilization than most species do in twice the time. Their entire history is filled with warfare and defense innovation. Before Talorax could respond, a communication came through from Earth. President Bennett's face appeared on the main screen. This is President Laura Bennett of Earth. What you have just witnessed is only a fraction of our defensive capabilities. We chose to disable rather than destroy your vessels. This was a demonstration, not an act of war. She paused, her expression firm but not triumphant. We remain open to true diplomatic relations as equals, but we will not be colonized or controlled. The choice is yours, equal negotiation or leave our system in peace. The message ended. The command room of the flagship fell silent. In the Grand Council chamber billions of miles away, Grand Minister Cathalak received the disturbing news. For the first time in 3,000 years of leadership, the ancient being felt something, like fear. Summon the full council, he ordered. We face a situation without precedent. Back on Earth, celebration was tempered with caution. They had won the first exchange, but what would come next? They'll either retreat or escalate, Secretary Pierce warned. We should prepare for both. Eric looked at the tactical display showing the disabled alien ships. If they're as old and set in their ways as they seem, they won't know how to handle this. And that, Admiral Wright said quietly, might be more dangerous than if they did. As Earth waited for the Council's response, Captain Grant's stealth ship continued its silent observation, recording everything for humanity's growing understanding of their new galactic neighbors. 3 days passed. The disabled alien ships remained in Earth's orbit running on emergency power. Repair drones buzzed around them like bees around a hive. The main Council vessel stayed at the edge of the solar system, silent and watchful. In the underground command center, Eric paced nervously. Why haven't they responded? Admiral Wright studied the latest satellite images. They're regrouping, probably waiting for instructions from their leadership. The communication alert sounded. Ambassador Zalvorn requested to speak directly with President Bennett. When the alien's image appeared on screen, Eric noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. The ambassador seemed less confident, more careful in his words. President Bennett, Zalvorn began, the Grand Minister has authorized me to inform you that a full Council delegation is en route to your system. This is unprecedented. The Council itself rarely deals directly with new species. President Bennett kept her expression neutral. We look forward to meeting them as equals. For the first time, Zalvorn didn't object to the word equals. He simply nodded and ended the transmission. Something's changed, Dr. Collins said. His language patterns showed actual respect. 1 week later, a massive ship unlike any seen before entered the solar system. It dwarfed even the first Council, vessel. Gold and silver markings decorated its smooth hull. It moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its size. The Grand Council chamber, Zalvorn explained during his next communication. The seat of galactic governance has come to you. This has not happened in 7,000 years. Earth prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. The Council requested the meeting take place on neutral ground, the Moon. Humans quickly constructed a pressurized dome facility on the lunar surface. On the day of the meeting, President Bennett led a small delegation to the Moon. Eric, Admiral Wright, Dr. Collins, and Secretary Pierce accompanied her. 5 of Earth's most brilliant minds and strongest leaders, facing the rulers of galactic civilization. The Council representatives arrived in an ornate shuttle. 7 beings of different species emerged, led by Grand Minister Cuthlack, an ancient, tall being with translucent skin through which complex organs could be seen pulsing with life. His eyes were deep pools of swirling color. "We greet you," the Grand Minister said, his voice somehow both ancient and clear. "I have ruled the Council for 3,000 years. In that time, I have overseen the incorporation of 97 species into our order. Never have I needed to personally intervene." President Bennett stood straight, impressively calm in the presence of this ancient being. "We are honored by your visit, but our position remains unchanged. Earth seeks friendship, not submission." The Grand Minister studied her for a long moment. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable. You have forced the Council to question practices unchanged for millennia." He gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing hundreds of worlds. "The Council maintains order across 20% of this galaxy. Our protocols exist for a reason: structure, stability, predictability. With respect," Eric said, surprising even himself. "Perhaps those protocols have become too rigid, too focused on control rather than cooperation." The Grand Minister turned his swirling eyes to Eric. "Perhaps. It has been suggested by some that our ways have grown stagnant." One of the other council members stepped forward, a small purple-skinned being named Vex Lore. Many younger council members have argued for reform, for true cooperation rather than the old hierarchies. "The human response has strengthened their position," added another council member. Grand Minister Cuthlack made a gesture that seemed to indicate deep thought. "For 12,000 years, the Council has incorporated new species through the same process: Class C status, resource tributes, military oversight. It has never been questioned." "Until now," President Bennett said. "Until now," the Grand Minister agreed. "And now other species are beginning to question as well." This revelation hung in the air. Humans had started something bigger than themselves. Another council member, who introduced herself as Mirteth, spoke up. "My people were incorporated 300 years ago. We remain at Class C status despite our contributions. The human stand has given many hope for change." Grand Minister Cuthlack raised a hand for silence. "The Council faces a choice: continue our ways and risk growing unrest, or adapt to a new reality." He looked directly at President Bennett. "We propose a compromise. Earth will enter the Council at Class B status, higher than any new species in 9,000 years. You will keep 90% of your resources, and there will be no military presence without mutual agreement." President Bennett glanced at her advisors. Admiral Wright gave a slight nod. "And in return?" Bennett asked. "You will share your unique perspective," the Grand Minister said. "Your species thinks differently than any we have encountered. You see possibilities where we see only established patterns. We need this fresh perspective." President Bennett considered the offer. "We would need to bring the full proposal to Earth's governments for approval. But speaking personally, this seems like a foundation we can build on." For the first time in the meeting, the Grand Minister's expression changed to something that might have been satisfaction. "Then let us proceed." 1 month later, Ambassador Jack Murphy became Earth's first official representative to the Galactic Council. He stood in the massive council chamber, surrounded by representatives of hundreds of species. Some watched him with curiosity, others with resentment, many with hope. When he took his seat, a seat with more privileges than any new species had ever received, a ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Change had come to the galaxy, brought by the most unlikely of sources: a young species from a small blue planet who simply refused to accept the established order. In his private quarters that evening, Grand Minister Cuthlack met with his closest advisors. "We have never compromised before," one said worriedly. The ancient leader looked out at the stars. "The Council has survived for 12,000 years by maintaining order, but perhaps true order requires occasional change." He turned to face them. "The humans forced us to remember something important. Adaptation is not weakness, it is survival." Back on Earth, President Bennett looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, humanity's voice was now part of a vast galactic conversation. Not bad for a Class B species, Admiral Wright said with a rare smile. We won't stay Class B for long, President Bennett replied. This is just the beginning. And across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, other species looked toward Earth with new hope. The humans had done the impossible. They had changed the unchangeable. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be quite the same again. 6 months passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The changes rippled across the stars faster than anyone expected. Ambassador Jack Murphy quickly became a central figure in council politics, his direct approach winning both allies and enemies. In his spacious office aboard the council station, Jack reviewed reports from home. Earth was changing too. New technologies flowed in through carefully negotiated exchanges. Medical advances extended human lifespans. Clean energy systems replaced fossil fuels almost overnight. His assistant, Lieutenant Danny Price, entered with the daily briefing pad. Sir, the Loraxian delegation has requested another meeting. That's the third this week. Jack smiled. The Loraxians had been stuck at Class C status for 700 years. Now they saw an opportunity for change. Schedule them for tomorrow morning, Jack said. And what about the Vorn proposal? Still facing opposition from the older council members, Danny replied. But gaining support among the younger species. The Vorn proposal, as it had become known, would create a new path for advancement within the council. Species could earn higher status through contributions to science, art, or peacekeeping, rather than just military strength or age. On Earth, Dr. Nicole Turner led the Cultural Exchange Program. Today, she welcomed a group of young aliens from 12 different species. They gathered in the new Galactic Studies campus built near the old United Nations headquarters in New York. Earth culture has many regional variations, she explained to her fascinated audience. What we consider normal in one place might be strange in another. This diversity is our strength. A tall, insect-like student raised a limb. Is this why humans refused standard incorporation? Because you value diversity so much? Nicole considered the question. Partly. We value our differences, but we also value our freedom to choose our own path. This is deeply rooted in many human cultures. The alien students took notes eagerly. Earth had become the most requested destination for young council species, seeking to understand the galaxy's newest disruptors. Meanwhile, in the Grand Council chamber, a heated debate was underway. Representatives from older, established species faced off against a growing coalition of younger worlds, with humans at the center of the controversy. The human model threatens thousands of years of stability, argued the Zenthar representative, whose species had enjoyed Class A status for millennia. Jack Murphy stood calmly at the speaker's podium. We don't threaten stability. We offer evolution. The difference is crucial. Council member Vex Lore, who had become one of Earth's strongest allies, added his voice. The human perspective brings fresh thinking to ancient problems. Already their scientific approach has helped solve the Tannis system resource crisis. Grand Minister Cathalak observed silently. In his private thoughts, which he shared with no one, he had begun to see the humans as both disruptive and necessary. Like a controlled burn in a forest, they cleared away dead wood and allowed new growth. Back on Earth, Eric Mason had been promoted to Director of Galactic Relations. Today, he welcomed a very special visitor to his office. Commander Talorax, he greeted the stone-skinned military leader who had once threatened Earth. Welcome to our planet. Talorax looked uncomfortable in the Earth-normal gravity. Your invitation was unexpected. Eric smiled. 6 months ago, you were ready to force our compliance. Today, you're here to discuss mutual defense strategies. The galaxy changes quickly. Too quickly for some, Talorax rumbled. Many military leaders are concerned about the pace of reforms. Change always meets resistance, Eric said. But I think you're here because you see the value in our approach. Talorax made a gesture that might have been agreement. Your species fought among yourselves for most of your history. Yet you developed protocols for peace even in conflict. This interests us. In Geneva, President Bennett met with her cabinet to discuss the latest council developments. Secretary Pierce projected a galactic map showing the spreading influence of Earth's approach. 27 species have now formally requested reclassification using our model, he reported. The council can't ignore the momentum. Admiral Wright, now head of Earth's new Space Defense Force, added, "Not everyone's happy about it. The intelligence report suggests some older species are considering direct action to restore the traditional order." President Bennett studied the map thoughtfully. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. Change never is, but we're committed to this path." On the council station, Intelligence Officer Kusnith had requested a private meeting with Ambassador Murphy. Her large compound eyes darted nervously as she entered his office. "Ambassador, I bring warning," she said quietly. "Certain factions are planning to undo Earth's influence. They believe if they remove Earth from the equation, the old order will restore itself." Jack kept his expression neutral. "Remove in what sense?" "There are those who would consider extreme measures," Kusnith said carefully. "I believe humans call it regime change." Jack thanked her for the warning. After she left, he contacted Earth immediately. Their position was more precarious than they had realized. In his meditation chamber, Grand Minister Kathlak received troubling reports from his most trusted sources. Whispers of plots and counterplots reached his ancient ears. Some council members spoke of removing him from his position. Others planned actions against Earth. For the first time in thousands of years, the council stood at a crossroads. The old ways pulling in one direction, the new human-inspired approach pulling in another. Kathlak made his decision. He summoned his personal guard. "Bring me Ambassador Murphy," he ordered. Discreetly, when Jack arrived, the Grand Minister dismissed all other presences from his chamber. "Ambassador," he said gravely, "we face a critical moment. Forces are aligning against the changes your world has inspired. They will not stop until they restore the old order." Jack nodded. "We've received similar warnings." "Then you understand the danger," Kathlak said. "But perhaps you do not understand the opportunity." The ancient being activated a holographic display showing the full structure of the council governance system. For 12,000 years, this has remained essentially unchanged. Perhaps that is the true problem. Jack studied the display. "What are you suggesting?" "A more fundamental reform than any yet proposed," Kathlak said quietly. "A true galactic union of equals, replacing the hierarchy that has defined us for millennia." Jack's eyes widened. "That would change everything." "Yes," the Grand Minister agreed. "And it begins tomorrow, when I address the full council. I will need Earth's support." As Jack left the chamber, he knew they stood at the edge of galactic history. What had begun as Earth's simple refusal of unfair terms was about to transform the stars themselves.